En el primer bloque de la tarde nos da una presentación Henk Hoff. Él es miembro de la OpenStreetMap Foundation. Miembro del directorio de la fundación y nos va a hablar de temas diversos relacionados con la fundación. Va a hacer la charla, él es holandés, pero va a hacer la charla en inglés y van a poder disfrutar de la traducción. Eso es. Gracias. That's what I've learned the last couple of days. Hola. So it's a pleasure to be here. I'm slightly a little bit uncomfortable because I'm one of the only persons that really can't speak that Spanish that well. So bear with me. I hope to make it up to you during this conversation. Oh, by the way, if you have any questions later on, I have this thing with these lovely ladies next to it. So please have, or you can ask your question in Spanish, so I can hear it. So no worries, we'll be taken care of. Thank you very much again. My name is, as Julio said, Henk Hoff. I'm a member of the board of the OpenStreetMap Foundation, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about the foundation, what we do, what the community does, etc. But first, a little bit of history. Why did OpenStreetMap start? As basically because we've heard it earlier today that geodata or data in general was basically locked up. It was closed data. If you wanted to have kind of data, you needed to spend a lot of money to actually get some data, and you were, again, also very restricted on what you can do. So if you want to do some research on it, okay, you have to pay for it. If you want to print a map on it, you have to pay another fee for that. So it was really kind of complicated. And well, since we're kind of a more sharing economy, all people raise their voice and really want to make their data free. I want to make data. We want to have our data because the streets are there. It's not intellectual property that this city is called Santiago, and that we are on a specific street. There's no really intellectual property on that. So let us give our data, and we can do whatever we want with it. And the idea was if people don't give us the data, then we try to collect it and make our own data set and give that away. And the whole idea behind idea is that basically everybody is just going somewhere. And well, I just cycled to Santiago. I think it was yesterday. See a lovely sunny spring day. But the idea is that if everybody does their little bit, then we can collectively make something bigger. And that collection, or that bigger group kind of thing, that's really what OpenStreetMap is about. It's not so much primarily the data, yes, of course, that is a trigger, that's what we deliver, but it's all about the community. It's all about that we together collectively work on creating the map. And if we share all our individual little things, we can make something very big and nice. So again, a little bit about the history. It was a little bit. It's a little bit difficult to see when basically OpenStreetMap started. So we've kind of made up the idea. We started with August 9th, 2004, because then the OpenStreetMap domain, OpenStreetMap.org, was registered. So, of course, for instance, Steve Coase, who initiated the project, thought of it before. So you could say that the birth of OpenStreetMap was a little bit before, but it's really kind of complicated in what night, in which dream exactly he got the idea. Hey, come on, I'll make it OpenStreetMap. So we decided the birth of OpenStreetMap is when we claimed the domain name. A little quick tour on the history. So 2004 was that. 2005, we got the first 1,000 users registered. 2007, so 2 years later, and AMD, one of the larger data providers, it was the third largest in the world. So you had NAFTAC, which is now here, and you had Teleatlas, which is now TomTom, and then you had AMD. And AMD donated their map of the Netherlands and from China and from India to OpenStreetMap and say, here you have our data set, do what you want to do with it. And they just wanted to see how this collaborative thinking or collaborative work on creating a doc or creating map data would work. And the this idea of them was that we can copy it and make something like an open data map. Well, it turned out slightly different because OpenStreetMap really catched on to much of a surprise of them, and we basically killed their initial model that they had in mind. But we're still very happy with the donation, especially on the Netherlands, because that was a pretty good data set. China, we didn't really import it, only the street, only the city names, because the rest was just not really any quality. And India, I'm not quite sure what we've done with that, but it was also not really the best data set that we had at the time. But basically, the most important thing was at that time the Netherlands. 2 years later, 2009, we had 100,000 users registered. So it's gradually going, and a year later, then we finally got very good imagery because Bing provided us with views of their imagery for us to trace over and really create a map. And aerial imagery is really, really helpful in actually making things up, especially if you have these kind of armchair mapping that you can map out beyond your own place of living. Well, I can talk a little bit more about how many people signed up, etc. But the most interesting kind of thing is that nice graph. So in the beginning it was kind of a gradual growth, but at some point the pace picked up and grew and grew and grew. And if you look at now, well, basically it was yesterday, well, it's not. So it's 2 million and almost 2.25 million registered users with OpenStreetMap, and of those, about 3,000 are actively editing the map on a daily basis. Let me just say it slightly different. 3,000 users are actively editing the map a day. It's not the 3,000. So today you don't have the same 3,000 as tomorrow. It's just getting. So basically, we're talking about. So what we then can make is that we can create all kinds of great maps. This, of course, you've probably seen it in Santiago. And if you see the growth of OpenStreetMap in the last little bit more than 10 years, a famous quote from apparently Mahatma Gandhi, but it's a little bit disputed if it's his quote. But the idea is first they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, and you win. I can still remember because I got active in OpenStreetMap in 2007, and that was the kind of thing. The major parties, they just kind of ignored us, and you're never going to pull it off, and this is just a bunch. You really need to be professionals to actually make it done. We get all kinds of, probably is all kinds of bad publicity about TomTom, how evil or bad our quality is, and that their quality is way much better. And now you see major companies, major organizations embracing OpenStreetMap, actually going to OpenStreetMap because it's so good. And it's so much better than, for instance, the TomTom data, etc. Depends on what you want to use it for. So it was interesting at least for me, to kind of feel that this code was really kind of interesting for OpenStreetMap. Good to mention that OpenStreetMap is, well, it is a project, and we make a distinction between the project and, let's say, the community, and on the other hand, the foundation. Let's let me just talk a little bit more about the foundation because that's kind of the boring stuff. And the foundation is more a legal entity to represent the project. Earlier on, it was a project that was started by Steve Coase, and basically everything that the project as a whole was doing, Steve Coase was personally liable for the project because he was the sole owner. That's not really a very good um, format in how to grow and how to become bigger. So that's why we now have a legal entity, which is in the UK, because that's where the project started, that represents the foundation. What we do is we maintain that the servers of the OpenStreetMap projects are running. We try to scale it up, so we try to buy new hardware. We negotiate with other parties who wants to run a tile server, so we can distribute traffic to it. But basically, to get the whole infrastructure running, that's part of what we do as a foundation. We also own the trademarks. We have a trademark on the OpenStreetMap. Also think that we have a trademark on the logo. And it's also important that we have that because you see a lot of companies maybe trying to pitch in or try to, well, say, well, we are OpenStreetMap or we are whatever linked to OpenStreetMap, and we really want to protect our brand, and that it's not going to be diffused too much. That at the end you have those questions like, will the real OpenStreetMap please stand up? Because that's us, and we have to act on that. And also, we are the official publisher of the OpenStreetMap dataset. That doesn't really mean that we're the owner of the data, because if you edit or if you put data into our database, officially you are still owner of that little piece of data. But the way it works is that you give us permission or the right to distribute it as a collective thing. So it's not our own data, but the collective kind of thing, we are allowed to publish it under our name. But you also see, if you look at the attribution, it's more OpenStreetMap and contributors. Because you are still the owner of that data, you're still the owner of that kind of thing. That's what you're going to do. But it is getting a little bit tough to actually extract it again because everything is so mingled up. So that's also why we basically said, so if you sign up with OpenStreetMap, you cannot after a year say, nah, I'll retract my permission and you need to delete everything. That's not the case. So if you sign up, if you give us the data, it's just that kind of thing. If you want to quit with it, just stop. But we're not going to delete anything of your data because you thought of, well, on hindsight, I'm not really happy. Because it's fundamental that we do that because it's so very intervened with each other. You can't really pick one thing out because then the whole thing will collapse. Also mentioned trials on the publisher. It's also one kind of thing to protect you as the contributor for any legal suits. Because if there's a company suing us because there's all kinds of or copyrighted data in it, they'll sue us and not you. And we're going to be in between you and those companies. But we then have the right, of course, if that really is that if you, for instance, would have added, of course, completely innocently some data that is copyright protected, then we have the right to remove that data because we need to have that project covered. Okay, the goal of the OpenStreetMap Foundation is mainly that we encourage the growth and development of distributed data and open data. And we want to give all people our geographical data to do whatever they want to do and surprises. And so we try to stimulate innovation. So if you have the data for your benefit, what could you do with it? And again, make us astonishing, make us wonder, or make us well, subparameters. That's basically the idea. I'm not going to go too much into licensing, but um, we do have an open license, and it was briefly mentioned earlier today. And we currently still have this viral aspect of it, which is sometimes a little debatable whether it's good or not. But we want to dedicate the encouragement to growth of the group. We want to open up more and more data. And the only thing that we currently have to do that is our own data. So we basically, if you use our data, you also need to open up your data. So that's the way how we can grow, how we can make or make use of our own data to hopefully create more open data ourselves. And of course, if you have organizations that are, let's say, more open than us, like in hey, it's public domain, it sometimes have a conflict. It's not that we want to punish the ones that have a public domain license or a very open license. It's more for us a way to have a discussion with companies and organizations that really haven't understood the power of open data. So that's the kind of thing. And if you have conflict with the license, let us know, and we can discuss the kind of things how we look at this. One of the let's say mantras. I'm not sure if that's the right word. Mantra that we have is that we say the foundation is there to support but not control the project. What we are not going to do is to say to you, thou shall now map trees, or you need to map garbage bins, or you need to map whatever. No, that's all up to you. We provide the infrastructure, and we try to make it as open as possible for you to make it happen. So we want to facilitate this kind of thing. But on the other hand, well, you have also people that say, well, any kind of control is too much, so we should be actually doing nothing. It's always it's trying to find the right balance. But if you talk about support but not control, is that we try to facilitate the project. We're not going to say what you need to map, how you need to be mapping. We leave that to the community to make that all happen. If there's disputes on data, we basically would like to let the community to decide what the golden rule is. So we don't want to intervene. So if I could, I'd like to compare it with our well, let's say competitor. So we have OpenStreetMap and we have Google Map Maker. Another company you might have heard of, Google, and they also do something with maps. And the main difference between us, which also kind of hopefully understands the idea of support, not the control, is obviously that we like to be a bottom-up organization. We like to have the people, the community, be able to do whatever they want to do, and we try to facilitate. Where if you look at Google Map Maker, it's basically Google decides what you are able to map, and you need to map according to their standards, and they are going to review whatever you've mapped, and if it's not good enough, it'll be deleted or not published. So there's a whole other approach to map making between, for instance, Google Map Maker and OpenStreetMap. And that's basically also the idea about what we say support but not control. We want to have you be able to do the things that you'd like to do. In order to make that happen, we have all kinds of working groups. Well, just go over the most important ones. Well, the very most important one is the operation working group. Those are the people that actually run the service. So they're the administrator of the service. So if something breaks down, they'll get a message or a text them out, and they'll run to whatever place that you need to go to actually make it happen. So they'll basically run the service, make it purchase new service, etc., and make this whole infrastructure work. We have a communication working group who try to tell things about the OpenStreetMap project. They're basically responsible for the blog that we have. If we have press releases out, all these kind of things, they'll try to communicate about OpenStreetMap. Gosh, that's a surprise if you look at the name. Another interesting one is the data working group, which is if there are disputes, most of the time it's in the data working group. The data working group are a group of people, so if there is a dispute about data, if there is a claim there's copyrighted data in it, it needs to be removed, the data working group is looking at it. And they have some guidelines on how they look at it. And if the case that is represented or presented, say, if that's valid, then we'll take out the data. Or if there's an edit war going on, they'll try to intervene. So anything with related to the data, or you have uploaded something and you don't know how to revert the data or undo it, you can send an email to the data working group and they'll try to do it for you. We have a license or legal workup. It's currently a little bit difficult what the L stands for, but anyways, anything related to license, deal, and the legal kind of things, they'll work with it. The main part was a couple of years ago that we changed to another license, and the whole process of doing that is and we have a local chapters working group. We do have first official local chapters, but the whole idea about local chapters is that we try to make contracts with local OpenStreetMap entities like OpenStreetMap Chile, OpenStreetMap Brazil, OpenStreetMap Paraguay, well, Brazil, whatever, you name them. And that we make a contract with them so they can freely use, for instance, the name OpenStreetMap because we have a trademark. And that we acknowledge them that you are the local voice in that region. So if we get all kinds of press and that kind of inquiries from the region, we'll just forward that to your local chapter. And we expect the local chapter to try and promote OpenStreetMap, encourage the growth of the community, etc. Almost last engineering working group, a group of people who are trying to help out in the software that we have and trying to work on that. So the API that we have is one of the things that the engineering working group is running for. The whole website, how the kind of things is, so newer features on our website, OpenStreetMap.org, that's also related with the engineering working group. And the last one is the State of the Map working group. You might have heard that there was a State of the Map last year in Buenos Aires. That was done by the State of the Map working group. We have a global state of map that's hopping around all over the world, trying to stimulate OpenStreetMap or spreading the word about OpenStreetMap. And I've also heard that since we had this Buenos Aires conference last year, one of the reasons that we're currently here today is because we had it last year. So that makes me very happy that I can be here standing for you. So, in introduction, again, like I said, it's a little bit of boring stuff. But the most interesting kind of thing is our annual budget. We only have like 100,000 British pounds, which I forgot to look up how much it is in Chilean pesos. But let's say how much is it roughly? I think I need to add 3 zeros to the balance, roughly. Yeah, so it's 100 million Chilean pesos. That's our annual budget. That's what we do it for. One thing that we can do with such a low budget is because everybody working in OpenStreetMap is doing that for free. I don't get paid with all the volunteers. Although there's one exception, we have a bookkeeper who is on temp basis, on a part-time basis, I mean, because we are an official corporation and we need to file our financial stuff and we really want to have something professional look at it. So she's getting paid. It's not a very high or it's not price not a high glucose or any other major kind of thing that you have to pay bonus to actually be represented by them. It's just a kind of thing. So it's we try to make it as small as possible. So how do we actually make it, or how do we get that 100,000 pounds? Well, first of all, is the membership fee. You can become a member of the foundation, which you should actually. We have donations, donations by companies, but also by individuals who just donate a couple of thousand pesos every month or every whatever time, because they really like the project. So it's that and bigger companies. And if we have a specific kind of thing, we do have a donation. So recently, we had a donation drive for a stack of new servers. And then we can say, hey, we want to buy these servers so we can do this specific kind of thing. So we have, for instance, an extra um, 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 spare location. So if our main core location burns down, we can go to another location and really put it on. And then we can, so the donation drives is mainly done for a specific part where we can specifically say this is what we're going to use it for. And if the donation drive is not matched, apparently the community or the larger audience doesn't really think that it's needed. I talked a little bit about members. The interesting kind of thing about members is that we currently have three types of members: normal members. In English, it's also ordinary members, but ordinary sounds so normal. Um, we have associate members and corporate members. So, corporate members, the name says it, it's organizations. So it's not a person, but it's companies or organizations that can become members. Then we have two other forms, normal and associate members. It has to do with law in England. A normal member, so we are an association, and the membership list contains also the address information of all the members. And we could understand that not everybody is really willing to provide their personal address information, like you live on whatever street in whatever place. But by law, we need to register that kind of information for the normal members. And if somebody comes up to us and say, we'd like to inspect your membership list, we need to give that list to those people. So we've come up with an alternative of associate membership, which is not the normal membership. So if people are say, I don't want to have my address known, that kind of thing, the associate members we only need to know your name and the country you're from, and that's basically it. And it's not open for the public, just like so as a normal members are. So the normal members, anyone in the world can come to us and say, I want to inspect the membership register for the associate members list. It's only accessible for members. So a member can say, I want to have a look at the associate. So that's the biggest difference between the two. There are some other small kind of differences, but it's all kinds of law related kind of stuff. But that's the main reason why we have it. Let's talk a little bit more about this kind of health kind of thing. I think this kind of explains a little bit what we as a foundation would like to do. We want to be that kind of basket that brings all those delicious kind of good healthy stuff together. And it's a diverse bunch of fruit stuff, but we try to be able to facilitate, to bring them together and make it happen. And actually that your voice can be heard. That you not have to be there as a single person, but as a group, you're stronger and your voice will be heard soon. A little bit more about community then. So that's the foundation. Community is really the most important stuff, or the most important part of our project. And the community is a little bit like, well, just like the street kind of things, it's a diverse group. Some people ask me, so what does the community think? Well, the community is not just one person. It does not have one opinion. It has multiple opinions. And that's the difficult part of the community. If you would ask the opinion of a person, well, let's say you, and on a certain subject, you probably would get a different answer. And that makes the community a little bit difficult. So you have community people like that who are just really wanting to go out and make it happen. And if you're not with us, you're against us, that kind of thing. Let's make it happen. Or you have communities like that who try to help together make the world a little bit better. I'm not going to say that those other people are not really wanting to make the world a little bit better, but it's the approach that we're going to do. And we have both of them. And that sometimes frightens organizations, like okay, so what's OpenStreetMap? Who can I talk to? And am I doing the right thing? And if you have these kind of things, so if you're an organization, well, and especially also government organization, also very big, who am I talking to? So if you really don't know what it is, talk to us. We'll try to help you, try to introduce you to people and get things started. So if you're holding back because you have all kinds of frightening ideas about what the community is, I would say come to us and make it up. And just don't assume things. Check with it, because one person, the reaction of one person is not representative for the whole regular community. So if you have a bad experience, well, it's just continue, go on, and you'll probably find better things to see. And a little bit talk about communities is more of this, because we want to do good. This was the earthquake in Haiti, and this was one of the first ones in 2010. Was the first one of the first times that really made it clear what a community like OpenStreetMap could do. But it was a very severe earthquake. Lots of houses were damaged. The roads were not navigatable anymore. All these kind of things. So in a couple of days after the earthquake, lots of people started to map things, made clear which houses were collapsed, where refugee camps were, where potable water fountains were, and that kind of thing. And it really helped the Red Cross and the Médecins Sans Frontières to help out with the first relief on the ground. And that's basically also the start of the organization HOT, the Humanitarian OpenStreetMap team, who's now trying to build an infrastructure to be able to help out in these kind of emergencies. And you earlier saw from Alex an image of Nepal. Has also been a very severe earthquake there. And if you have these kind of natural disasters, it is extremely important you have up-to-date maps. Because at that point, all the maps you have are not good anymore. So you need to have these kind of things. And then the community can really pitch in and help in. Because if we all do a little bit, we can really make a difference in those areas. Earlier this year, we had a State of the Map event in New York at the United Nations. And we also heard from the World Bank and those other organizations how great, how happy they were with OpenStreetMap, with a project like this, and how that really could help make the difference. Talking about differences, Nairobi, Kenya, normally is not really, well, the main roads are normally mapped, but if you make that difference, this is a major slum in Nairobi, it's Kibera. Normally, a slum is not really on the map because who cares who lives there officially? Well, probably the people there, but it's not really of a very economical value that there's a slum. Now this slum has been mapped, and it has been mapped by the people who live there. And the interesting thing is, if you have a map, people can talk about it. So this map has now been used with the local government, together with the community there, for instance, asking women, where do you feel unsafe during the night? And they'll try to put lanterns there. Or it makes it clear where, for instance, water fountains are, where churches are. But not only churches, also mosques. And you now see a whole community, a whole society come to life because you have a map. And basically, if you're not on a map, you don't exist. So putting things on a map make them you make them clear that they exist and they can actually do things. So you can also improve their life in their region because you can communicate with a map. Another interesting, very high interest holiday destination, North Korea. Normally, there's not that many maps around it, and so we've also had these maps about places that you normally would probably not really expect to get in. And that's also why the United Nations is really interested in us because we can get those maps. And the United Nations is also helping us in improving the map. So they also edit the map and make it better as a collective kind of thing because it can help them doing the right stuff. Well, I don't need to tell you about how interesting how interesting mapping is, but that's good. Because I'm not sure if you are a mapper, so if you come from a geometry map. But most of the time, I sometimes get those questions like, okay, but why are you doing that? Or why are people mapping in their spare time as a hobby and they get nothing paid? Well, first one is just freedom. It's just go where you want to go. Well, you have an excuse to actually go somewhere. Look, I need to map. And, which is nice. And you see all kinds of, let's say, adventurous kind of things. So if you go to a place and you see, for instance, this road sign, which does exist, the at your own risk road, who doesn't really want to know where the road is going to? And it brings you, and it kind of opens your eyes on what is there and what's not. And just, let's not forget, it's just pure fun. It's just interesting to do it. It's just, well, it's slightly different than video game. Let's put it that way. And what the most interesting kind of thing of OpenStreetMap is, well, for instance, compared to Google Map Maker, you have this instant gratification, what we call it, which is if you edit the map, it's there. There's not a complete difficult process of validating your entry. If you edit the map, it's there. If you refresh a couple of minutes later, you see your change. And that changes then depending on, for instance, routing applications. It will very soon will add it into routing applications. I've seen a bike routing app on your iPhone which updated its maps about every week. So if you edit a map and say you've added a cycleway, a week later you can actually route over that cycle. That quick is how things are done. And that's that instant gratification that we talk about. You can really you can do something and really get feedback immediately. And with this kind of thing is also that you can do different kind of things. I talked a little bit about I mentioned innovation and also innovation about maps. So the way maps look like. We all know those kind of maps that you buy in a shop if you want to go from one place to another, and they're kind of all look the same. But there's so many different kind of ways how you can visualize a map. So this is just a map with only text, and the text is just what's there. It's just an interesting kind of thing. Or if you're really into Nintendo gaming, you can also create your own map there. The interesting kind of thing was also that when we started, most routing was done for cars because that's where the money was. Because people in the car would want to buy a a SatNav device. But now, with this open data, it's now also interesting to do cycle map. And here you have a map which is shown differently. So it's not the same ways of. So now not the motorways are imported with big red drawings, but now the cycleways are imported. So you can repaint the map yourself if you just have the data, and it makes it possible. And also the kind of thing what I earlier said amazes. This is one of the things that I've never heard about wheelchair routing for people in a wheelchair. I first thought, okay, it's roughly the same as just pedestrian routing, but it isn't. Because if you're on those barriers where you need somehow to wiggle through because it's want to block cyclists from going through, they're sometimes difficult for people in a wheelchair to take. Or if you need to cross the street, you can't just cross the street because the pavement height might be too high. So you want to know where you can cross the pavement. These kind of things you can actually put in the map, and actually the people in a wheelchair can put it in there. And they can help each other making these kind of things too. So that's what we also want to do as a facilitator. We want to create a platform where people with specific niche markets can do whatever they like to do. And not everything needs to be digital, etc. You can also keep it's like blankets and that kind of thing. So after hard days of work, you can just like cozily under your blanket. And so it's lots of things that you can do with maps. And making data freely available makes that possible. Okay, quality. One of the things that is also kind of interesting here, because do you really need to have professional people to provide quality? Well, here it basically says, well, the things tells is mainly, well, I would basically say if you have any doubt on quality, just take a sample of our data, and the sample may be just 100% sample. Which other company does that? And you can check it. And if you don't like the quality, well, go somewhere else. Spend a lot of money on another data set that probably also has flaws. So it's idea. Do you want to spend money on something that you probably can get for free? And if again you are not really happy with the quality, just have a look at it. But it's not only that. There are tools within the community helping us to identify potential problems in the data, and so people can fix it. One of the tools is the OSM inspector, which has all kinds of little things like nodes not connecting, or roads that don't have names, or a road that apparently is in water but it's not a bridge, which is also kind of weird. So all kinds of things, quality checks on the data, they OSM inspectors do it, and there are other tools there as well. I'm just pointing out there how to. But the most important thing with navigation in general, and not only with OpenStreetMap, please use your common sense. And that's what we also want to do. So we say that we want to represent the ground truth. And the ground truth is mainly what you see on the ground, what you see here. That's what we want to map. We don't want to map the politically correct kind of thing. It's just what you see there. So if, for instance, we had early on a discussion, let's say edit war in Cyprus, because you have a northern part which is Turkish, where the southern part which is Greek. And the interesting kind of thing is the southerners, the Greeks, they have their own names for the northern part. So they also have Greek names for the roads that are in the northern part of Cyprus. And guess what? The Turkish also have Turkish names for the area in Greece, or the Greek area. So there was an edit war on how the streets would be named. And we then come up with the idea of the ground truth. The name you see on the name shield, on the shield that's there, if you stand by the road, you see a street name, that's the name of the street. And you can add other names to it, as in Turkish, then it's called this. In English, it's called that. In Spanish, it's called whatever. But the main kind of thing is that's what you see. That's what we want to have. That's what we want to have. And we sometimes do get questions in from, let's say, disputed areas. Recently, we got a message in from the government from Ukraine that they really thought that the Crimea area was still a part of Ukraine, not part of Russia. So it's these kind of things that we try to get away from, and we try to make these kind of things like, okay, this is a border that's, according to these kind of people, that's what it is, and according to other people, it's what other people. But it's, so we as a foundation deal with these kind of decisions. What I'd like to say to you, because it's one of the things that I said earlier, become a member. It is very important that you become a member of the OpenStreetMap Foundation. Oh man, it's gone. I had a nice kind of slide which kind of said how many members we had in Latin America. And from our total membership base, so from the foundation, not the community as a whole, so from that was about 600 persons, only 1% was from South America or Latin America. I actually added Mexico too, to make it slightly. So 1% of our membership is from Latin America. And we do like to have a better representation of the world in our membership. Because you can guess what the biggest chunk of members are, and it's Europe. And Europe has about 70%, 70% of the members come from Europe, which is huge. The other big chunk is North America. So that's basically US and Canada together. And the rest is, well, okay, the one positive kind of thing, South America, you're not the lowest on the ladder. Because that's Africa. So they have even less members. So I'd like to make a challenge with you today, because I said at the beginning that I felt a little bit uneasy because I'm one of the few persons that is not able to fluently communicate in Spanish with you. If we can get the membership ratio of South America to, let's say, 15, now I'll make it easier on you, more difficult on me. If next year, so about a year from now, we can 10% of the membership is from Latin America. I'll be back at the next set of that, and I'll do the presentation in sort of fluent Spanish. It's a challenge for me to learn Spanish. It's a challenge for you to make up in that we have a bit more members, because we do need you. Because if it's from Europe and from North America, it's really an English-based group. And, well, frankly, you're not really English speakers. Sorry about that. But it's but also help out within obviously the foundation. Like we need people that have that wants to translate. So you don't need to be admin or service. You don't need to be a very high-end technician. There are lots of little things that you can do. If we can translate the site into complete Spanish, and I mean then the OSM Foundation will write a blog post of what's going on here in Latin America, or also become a member of a local chapter. And basically, everybody can do it according to this site as well. So, again, I'd like to kick off. So, if you feel comfortable with a challenge again, so by next year, where State of Latin America will be, if you guys are 10% of our membership is coming from Latin America, I will come back and I'll do this in Spanish. That's the challenge begins. Thank you very much. Oh, in case somebody has a question in Spanish, I can hear what you're
I'll try to make it change. So, you gave some numbers regarding the membership status, but do you have any numbers on the OpenStreetMap's data usage? Like how much data is used daily, something like that?
actually, not really, because um, you can download our data dump, so our planet file, and what you do with it, we don't know. You don't need to register that you want to download that data. So most applications that use OpenStreetMap data, we don't really know about because you can just download and do whatever you want to do. So the only thing that knows that it's always surprising where data show up. So there are plenty of apps going around. We know we even know that, for instance, here and TomTom is using OpenStreetMap, but it's basically to compare their data set with ours on, say, if we are really better than they are. But Apple is using our data. Microsoft is in part using our data. Foursquare is using our data. Well, name whatever you want to do. There's lots of people using our data. And we don't have track on the only thing I could say, lots.
Hello. I saw also the numbers you were mentioning regarding the editors. You were mentioning 2.2 million people already subscribed for doing editions, and 3,000 people is active daily also for doing edits. So from these 2.2 million, how many people is considered active, and what's the average of editions that you have?
Well, active users is all about your definition of active. There's one thing that we as one definition that we as a foundation have considered active, and that is written in our license. And that is who has. So if we want to change our license again, we need to ask everybody, is that okay? But now we only need to consult with the active members. And we've mentioned the active members there in, as if I remember it collectively, that you need to be mapping in 3 months in the last 12 months. So the last 12 months, you need to have made edits in 3 different months. It doesn't need to be consecutive, but it shows that it's not just, and if you've done that, we consider you an active member. But that's for licensing. I've just mentioned the 3,000 on a daily basis. It gives an idea. But it totally depends on what you define as active.
In my case, I define someone active if, for example, somebody just signed up to OpenStreetMap, did one edition, and didn't come back to do an edition for the last maybe 6 months. I consider that person inactive because it was maybe just an experiment and did one edition.
Yeah.
So that number of 2.2, I don't know how many people will be like this
there's,
kind of person.
yeah. If you look at these kind of things, you also see that famous graph of that. Let's say about, well, is it 10% is doing 90% of the work and that kind of thing. So there's a small portion of the whole bunch that's doing a lot of work, and there's a very long tail coming. So there are a lot of sign-ups there that maybe have just one edit, maybe not at all, but there's a long tail. So I've tried to make it clear, like, I can say that number like, oh, we have about 2.25 million people sign up, and then you fairly would ask the question, okay, but how many people are active? And to me, at the point was, well, I'm just currently more interested in, okay, there's 3,000 people every day editing the map. That gives an idea. And yeah, your definition of active, you need to be active at least edits maybe 3 months ago, and if you haven't done edits longer than that, you're not considered active. It's all how you define active. It's, yeah, sorry about that. It's not a clear answer.
Hi, Hank. So you said that the annual budget is £100,000.
Correct.
That seems amazingly low.
It is.
Because if we compare, for example, Wikimedia Foundation, I think their budget is 42 million euros.
Right. Yeah. One of
So
explain. I do see your big question mark around.
yeah, we need to do something. It seems to be.
Yeah. Well, well, one of the things is that we don't have what Wikipedia has is paid staff. Wikipedia has a lot of people working and they get paid, and we don't. We currently have a discussion because if we want to grow more, we also need to do more projects and trying to move the project forward and maybe facilitate things. So, for instance, that we for governments and that kind of thing, because what Alex talked about, how can we work together with the governments and sharing data? It might be interesting for us as a foundation that we want to start a project in trying to facilitate, to create something. We need money for that. The most important thing is if we get money, we need to um, uh, 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 to give reports back on how we spend them. So we need people to do all the administrative work, like the project is on schedule, this is what you return back on it, that kind of thing. And in order to do that, you really don't want to have volunteers. So the first step that we want to do is get somebody on board that will really pay to do work. It's just basically administrative work to actually get money in, try to run a project, not doing the project itself, but to coordinate it, to nudge people like, hey, can you do something for us, and that kind of stuff. So that's our next step. And we try to do that in hopefully the coming year that we will try to raise this fund. But until now, it's basically volunteer work. That's basically the main difference between Wikipedia and us, and why we can be so cheap.
But it seems to me that it's important to change. It's important
Yes,
to evolve.
yeah. And
there's an enormous potential, and if the foundation was stronger, for example, perhaps for this event, which is still in a region where OpenStreetMap is starting, the foundation may have helped.
Right.
So so the event could be bigger, etc. But it would be important that you have already raised the funds there, so that we have got the strength here to get the fund here too.
Absolutely.
And I think that bringing money on the boat we help all the process. So I think it's very important to run in that direction.
Yeah, one of the things for instance, if you mentioned the state of the map here now in Chile, is we're discussing that how should we structure all the state of the maps, because it's easier to organize, well, easier, quote unquote, in, for instance, Europe or North America, because it's more interesting for commercial companies to sponsor it, because it has more exposure.
True.
So we kind of think of how can we make this a little bit more like a collective kind of thing that we can say, okay, you can sponsor the one in the US or let's say Europe or maybe the foundation one, but then part of that sponsorship is going to regions that we still want to build, so that we can, that for instance Latin America pitch in, that we want to go to Africa, that we can go to Australia. But one of the things that we did last year was brought State of Map to Buenos Aires, really get the focal point on Latin America, to see it's not only Europe and North America. We're a global organization. We really want to represent it. So I would encourage you again on that to become a member and raise a question. Now remember that I want to have that. You can sign up today. www.ozenfoundation.org. It's really cheap. Estamos moviendo la lectura. Otro aplauso por favor. Aclarar que Jen gentilmente reemplazó a Steve Jobs que no pudo venir. O sea, lo que quería hacer fuera. Creo que todos lo pasamos muy bien por la charla. No a esto que se mata. Vamos a un pequeño postre. Hay jugo, agua, empezamos un rato juntos y volvemos a la charla en la bolsa. Slightly different logic. It probably wants to control you are. It tries to do go to that as well, but most of the time it's so if you